What if you had a plan to rule the world, but it backfired on you? That's the nightmare scenario China is facing with its Belt and Road Initiative, a colossal project that aims to link China with over 60 countries through infrastructure and trade. But instead of creating a win-win situation, China is losing big time. China is now staring at a debt crisis that could bring down its economy and its global ambitions. In this video, we'll uncover how China's grand strategy turned into a disaster and what it means for the rest of the world. In 2013, China revealed the project of the century, the Belt and Road Initiative. It's a global infrastructure development strategy adopted by the Chinese government to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations. The initiative aims to enhance regional connectivity and embrace a brighter future by developing two new trade routes connecting China with the rest of the world, focusing on infrastructure investment in 68 countries. Now, you might think that China is investing in road and rail and infrastructure that will join up all the dots and that will give them this road that goes from east to west and gives new access to new markets throughout the whole of the globe. But guess what? The majority of the money has been invested in energy. In fact, in just a decade, China has also emerged as the developing world's bank of choice, pouring hundreds of billions of dollars in loans into global infrastructure projects as part of its sprawling Belt and Road Initiative. Move over, World Bank and IMF, because China has claimed the throne as the world's largest source of development credit. With their Belt and Road Initiative, they've extended more overseas development than the Paris Club members combined. Back in 2010, less than 5% of China's overseas lending was geared towards rescuing struggling nations. But fast forward to 2022, and that number had skyrocketed to a whopping 60%, a clear indication that Beijing has been busy playing the role of a global financial superhero. Gone are the days of flashy infrastructure investments that defined China's Belt and Road campaign in the early 2010s. Nope, these days, it's all about saving countries from financial ruin. In fact, most of the $240 billion in total bailout loans were made in the last 5 years, from 2016 to 2021. And who were the lucky countries that got to benefit from China's generosity, you ask? Well, according to the report, most of them were deep in financial crisis, with their problems exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. From Argentina, which defaulted not once but twice after struggling for decades with its national debt, to Pakistan, whose currency crashed as foreign exchange reserves dwindled, China was there to save the day. China quite literally went on a lending spree with their Belt and Road Initiative, loaning over $1 trillion to almost 150 countries. They even became the largest official creditor in the world, beating out the likes of the World Bank and IMF. But whoopsie-daisy, looks like they forgot to do their homework on credit worthiness. With great power comes great responsibility, and China's ambitious lending has now led to its very own overseas debt crisis. That's right, Xi's scheme is now becoming China's first overseas debt crisis. China had to renegotiate a whopping $52 billion worth of loans to BRI countries in 2020 and 2021 alone. That's more than 3 times the amount of the previous 2 years. And these renegotiations involved loan write-offs, deferred payment schedules, and interest rate reductions. Pakistan and Sri Lanka are 2 countries that are giving China some major financial headaches. Sri Lanka's economy recently collapsed while Pakistan is teetering on the edge of economic collapse. To make matters worse, these countries are struggling to repay their loans, which puts the Chinese economy in jeopardy. It seems like China is learning the hard way that money doesn't grow on trees, especially when you lend it to countries with deteriorating financial conditions and project-specific problems. According to reports, around 70% of the countries that borrowed from the BRI are now defaulting on their payments, compared to only 10% back in 2014. And get this, a whopping 40% of the debt owed by poor countries is to China. Looks like China's generosity is not paying off after all. To add insult to injury, the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict have made things even worse for these countries. As they struggle to meet their debt obligations, China is left holding the bag, and it's not looking pretty. China's brilliant plan to keep projects they invested in as collateral has backfired. These projects are either collecting dust on the shelf or about as valuable as a $3 bill. Take Gwadar Port in Pakistan, for example. It's been under construction for years and still isn't complete. Meanwhile, the Pakistan government has conveniently forgotten to pay their dues for power projects for the past 2 years. And let's not forget the violated agreement since 2018. And it's not just Pakistan. The international airport in Zambia, Hambantota Port in Sri Lanka, and the Colombo Port City are all turning out to be massive financial flops. It's like China invested in a bunch of duds at a flea market, but with billions of dollars at stake. Looks like China might need to rethink their investment strategy, or at least consider hiring a better psychic to predict the future. According to a report, Sri Lanka has been trying to score some points with China by requesting a restructuring of its debt. But China's response has been as cold as ice, leaving Sri Lanka high and dry with a whopping $2 billion debt repayment to make. Sri Lanka has been begging for some breathing space, but China has been throwing shade and telling them to sort it out with Chinese banks instead. Looks like China wants to keep Sri Lanka on a tight leash and is not keen on letting them off the hook. Also, the State Bank of Pakistan has officially declared that the country is headed towards an economic collapse, just like its pal Sri Lanka. With the added burden of debt servicing, Pakistan's finances are sinking faster than a lead balloon. The only way for Pakistan to avoid going bankrupt is to beg, borrow, and steal. Well, maybe not steal, but definitely beg and borrow. The country needs a massive $6 billion assistance package from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, to keep its head above water. But the IMF is playing hardball and wants Pakistan to swear off borrowing more money from China for the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects before it hands over the cash. Meanwhile, African countries have been voicing their concerns over the overwhelming debt from the BRI loans. Zambia even went ahead and canceled some foreign loans, mainly from China, to avoid falling deeper into debt distress. This means that 14 projects under the BRI have been given the boot. China might be experiencing some buyer's remorse with their big-ticket infrastructure investments. They were feeling generous for a while, but now they're like debt collectors that nobody likes to see at their doorstep. And let's be honest, nobody likes being hounded for money, especially by a world superpower. China's new role as the world's largest official debt collector is causing a lot of headaches. It's not exactly the image they were going for with their benevolent financing of big projects. Now, they are facing a tough trade-off between collecting their money and maintaining their reputation as a friendly economic partner. Well, they need to sit down and renegotiate their position with every single country they've invested in, which is a monumental task. And even after all that effort, these countries might need even more money to finish their projects. So China's going to have to decide whether to keep giving out more money or cut their losses and walk away. And let's not forget that China's economy isn't exactly in great shape right now, so they don't exactly have a ton of money to throw around. All of this is coming at a time when the global economy is in crisis, which has caused prices to go up and put even more pressure on struggling economies. So it's looking like the vast majority of China's loan book will go into distress, and China will be left with a whole lot of bad loans and massive losses. In summary, China's BRI initiative wasn't the success they were hoping for. Instead, they're facing a nightmare of bad loans, bad debts, and potential catastrophic losses. But hey, at least they tried, right? What do you think is the right way to go for China? Or might this be the nail in the coffin for China's economy? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Make sure to watch the next video for more tea on the world.